This is kind of like people saying you can find drugs. It's like people saying drugs can be anywhere. You're going to find them no matter what. Or said, weed can be anywhere. But the better way you sell it, and the more safe it is, then it will be more successful. I don't know. I mean, they're all dangerous, and maybe it should just be banned for good. Unless you have a lot of plot of land in that county. Only call the police if it's a threat. Call our non-emergency number if you hear them and you're asking people to not do it, or you just feel the need to call them. Fines would be over a $500 fine if you have been seen in the place of doing it. The time is stressful, especially for pets. Dr. Kelly Wood, she has a dog that hates fireworks. She talks about that fight or flight. We can't explain it. That's why a dog just goes scared. They're loud booms.
Almost inevitable. Dr. Wood, thank you so much for joining us today.
Happy to be here.
Of course. So you just said you had a dog. You have a dog.
Yes.
And he hates the fireworks.
Absolutely hates them.
Why is that? Why do fireworks cause so much stress for our pets?
I feel like it triggers their fight or flight response. You know, we can't explain to them why there are these loud booms and that it's actually something we're all excited about. And it's really terrifying for them with their heightened sense of hearing and smell, even if they're right next to the fireworks. So I think it's just very overwhelming.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of stimulation. That's just not positive stimulation, though.
Yeah, at least not for them.
So most experts say, okay, well, keep your dogs indoors or any pet indoors while those fireworks are happening. But what if your pet needs to be outdoors? Is there something the owner can do so that the pet is still able to be outside but protected?
Yeah, absolutely. So making sure your pet is microchipped is really important, and making sure that microchip information is up to date. A lot of people don't realize that. And making sure they are wearing a collar with some identification information. You know, try to check the weaker spots in your backyard where your pet might get out in a panic. You know, things like that. If you're having people over, you try to get everybody involved in keeping the pet, you know, safe and contained, and coming up with a plan ahead of time so you're not in a bad situation.
Microchip. Okay, got to get that done.
Yeah.
And so we've already identified those fireworks. They could be loud, noisy, just completely horrible for the pets. What are some things people can do inside the house to sort of mitigate that?
Yeah, so trying to maintain your normal routine as much as you can so that they don't pick up on your sense of anxiety. Trying to have kind of a safe, darker area, maybe even some white noise, and you know, planning ahead using things like thunder shirts or, you know, pheromone releasing collars to kind of help create a sense of calm. And then you know, if it's appropriate, talk to your vet and see if there are some sedatives or, you know, something to help reduce their anxiety that you can use for the next couple of days.
I was going to ask you that. Would you recommend medications or even some natural remedies?
Yeah, I would say it's very pet dependent.
Okay.
Some will just sleep straight through the fireworks and not care. But if you know your dog or cat is an anxious, you know, sort of friend, then definitely talking to your vet and seeing what would be the best option is a great idea. There are some more kind of over-the-counter natural remedy type options that can be really helpful. And then you can always just see how it goes. If it doesn't go well, then we'll try next year and make some adjustments until we figure out what's going to help reduce their stress.
That makes sense, though. It's pet specific, so you got to just consult the doctor first before you give them anything.
See what medications they're on, see what their behaviors are like, and kind of make a plan that's tailored to that pet.
Are there any things that the owner should be looking out for in terms of prevention ahead of time when it comes to injury or illness ahead of the 4th of July?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, as much as we hope to not have to go to the ER during this next couple of days, you know, look them up ahead of time. Figure out who's close to you in case of a bad emergency. You know, keep in mind that a really anxious animal might even run through glass, which is really scary. So, you know, trying to mitigate that and create, like I said, a safe space for the animal. and have a plan in place in case the worst does happen.
And what kind of dog do you have, and what is your plan going to be 4th of July, morning or night?
Yeah, so he's a mutt. He's a Chihuahua mix. I got him from the shelter a couple years ago, so he's got his own little anxiety issues. But I have him on a more chronic anxiety medication for his stressors, but I'll give something called gabapentin and trazodone the night before, and then the morning of, and kind of 2 hours before I'm expecting the fireworks to start. It's hard because in Seattle, we love fireworks, apparently, compared to everywhere else I've lived. So trying to get a head start on it so we're not always playing catch up, when the fireworks start. They're probably already in too heightened of a sense of stress to get as much of a response. So that's usually my strategy, is trying to get ahead of the loud booms.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that night before plan and the 2 hour before plan too.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wood, for sharing all that information. Super helpful.
Yeah, happy to help.
Thank you. And Holly, you just got a dog last year, so this will be your dog's first 4th of July experience with you and your kids.
Yeah, I know. So we'll see how she does. I like the doctor's advice and the strategy, and I'm going to start thinking about my own strategy. I don't really know how Koa's going to do because she hasn't been exposed to fireworks yet. She did not like the pressure washer when the workers were on our neighbor's house pressure washing the roof. She did not like that noise, but that's not even a loud boom. So we'll see. I'm going to create a safe place for her.
Good luck to Koa, for sure.
Thank you both so much.
Is the Royals' road record a concern? Yes. They're a terrible baseball team on the road. If they want to get back to playing 500 baseball on the road, that would be nice. Even try to get to 500 on the road would make them a much better ball club. 500 overall, or even 500 after the All-Star break.
About their performance on the road. The road splits for riding a 4-game losing streak into Sunday, salvaged the game on Sunday against the Rockies. We'll start with you on this, Curtis. What's going on with the Royals on the road, and how do they fix it?
It is a concern, but I think you don't have to look very far into the numbers to figure out why. They're actually pitching better on the road than they are at home. They're 8th in ERA on the road and 17th at home, and all the slash lines are favorable. It's clearly the offense, and as I'm going to be 58 in 4 days, allow me to look at some notes here real quick. Home runs, hits, batting average, on base, slug, OPS. Here's where they rank in baseball. First, second, 7th, 4th, and 4th. Those ranks on the road: 27th, 29th, 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 27th, 28th. And there's no better poster child for that, or poster boy for that, than Bobby Witt Jr., whose on base, or his OPS, is more than 400 points higher at home than it is on the road. I think you'll see some narrowing of that gap as the second half goes. The hope for the Royals is that that narrowing comes from those bottom numbers coming up as opposed to those top numbers coming down. But I think that'll happen a little bit. I think you'll see those numbers even out a bit the second half, and that difference home and road will even out a little bit as well.
Curtis did the homework. He's got his numbers. He's prepared. But Rob, it seems simple, right? You sleep better at home. You're better at, your food is there. Your pets are there. Is it that simple that, the Royals aren't as good away as they are at home?
Well, I don't have the research that Curtis did, so I'll just, do a little less of that. But he's right. Like, you look at the Royals' numbers and their splits, and they're basically a 65-win team on the road. We've talked a lot about, hey, what are the Royals going to do to stay out of the playoffs if it works that way? Is it the hitting? Is the bullpen? What's the problem? The answer is the road woes. They cannot win on the road, and I hope there's some regression to the mean. Curtis's numbers are interesting. You figure they can't continue to be 29th and 30th in those numbers on the road, and maybe you'll see some equalizing. But right now, what's happening is they go on the road and they stink, and it is a cause for concern because it might be the reason the Royals don't make the playoffs this year.
Kent, this last series was a perfect example. The Rockies are a bottom 3 team in the National League. Perfect opportunity to get 2 or 3 and feel better going into the next series against St. Louis, and you only get 1. How are you feeling about the Royals lately, especially on the road?
Well, I go back to June, too. The articles start coming out about the positivity of the Kansas City Royals and how they're a real contender. And you look at the schedule and you look at the slate, and there's, some winnable series on the road. The Oakland Athletics. They lose 2 out of 3 there and have to win the last game to avoid a sweep. And then they finally get swept for the first time in the season against the Rangers, a couple days later. And now we look at the Rockies. The woes are kind of concerning because it seems like there's a trend happening here in the last month and a half of this team struggling even more on the road against teams that you would hope they would be able to beat.
You know, in the NBA, they say your role players play better at home, especially in the playoffs. Maybe as the Royals, a team who's trying to make a playoff push this year, maybe their role players and Bobby Witt Jr., as you mentioned, Curtis, can play better on the road after the All-Star break. Let's talk